Hello and welcome to another lap guide for the iRacing Camel GT series. This week we're at Interlagos. Here's the lap first. So lap time there's a 1:23.403. This is in default afternoon weather, and a couple notes about the setup real quickly is I actually ran the lap in a 9-wing setup here, and that's what I'll be sharing in the information below the video here. I also share my setups on Setup Sync in the forums, so you'll always find them there, any updates that I make to them. But the initial testing that I did here at the track was actually on 8-wing. I was actually feeling pretty comfortable with that. The optimals here are also with an 8-wing, but I also found that in the warmer weather that I have here in default weather that I could run more consistent quick laps with a 9-wing. So that's what I ran for this particular lap. So I would definitely consider running more wing when it's on the hotter end, and potentially run less wing when it's cooler. And I think you can definitely run 8-wing here pretty comfortably in the cooler weather. So let's go ahead and go back to the lap now in more detail, turn by turn. All right, so coming up to the Senna S into turn 1 here, the brake point for me is actually just past the 50. So you're going to see a threshold brake about 80% just past that. In this particular example, I came off the brake a little abruptly and then returned to braking. So still maybe just getting used to my brake timing here. But you really want to brake hard initially, and then kind of ease off as, of course, the downforce falls away, and your grip will now reduce as the car slows. Get a nice wide entry into turn 1 here, and aim to get as close to the curbing here, and really hug that for as long as you can, coming around turn 1 as you're going to open up turn 2 here in the Senna S. Now, in the curbing across this track, I try not to use much more than kind of the flatter first portion of the curbing. If you get up a little higher on the taller portions of the curbing, they actually unsettle the car a bit. It can maybe even send you into a slide. So try not to be too aggressive on the curbing, and but just get nice and close to that as you round this corner so that you can open up your entry through turn 2. So into turn 2, you can use all of the curbing here to the right. It is a little flatter, although you'll see the car take a little bit of a bump there, but it's pretty safe to just run right up close to the grass here through turn 2. And as you come across turn 2, you should be now aiming toward the curbing to the left, and you want to get to full throttle pretty quickly now here on out, and you'll be full throttle. Other than an upshift into third gear now, you'll be full throttle all the way around turn 3. So let's play the Senna S here at speed. So a quick note coming around turn 3 is that you can run out of road here in a hurry if your line is a little wide. That can happen if you either apex too soon, you take too much curbing here, and then you kind of fall away from that. The car can kind of end up pushing a little wide. You want to keep your speed up, keep the downforce levels high, so that you can stay pretty close to the curbing here and follow that as close as you can. And then as long as you've exited turn 2 with a nice line, then as you come off the corner here, you'll come up and you'll use the curbing here to the right, but you won't be in danger of coming up into the painted area, and there's actually an off track there. It happens pretty easily if you find yourself running wide, and this is the last place you want to have to lift as you come off this corner. And lifting to avoid an off track, to avoid invalidating your qualifying lap, for example. It's going to slow you up quite a bit. And if you also have to lift to avoid coming off into the grass here where you can actually lose control pretty easily, then in a race you could get past pretty quickly for someone getting a better exit, obviously. So just a quick note on that. Coming down into turn 4. My break point into turn 4 is just past the kind of little access road here. So as far as threshold brake goes, there's going to be about an 80% threshold brake. So you could also look at that as being in between the 100 and the 50, where that happens right about there. Keep the car to the right, and you'll notice how the road kind of widens a little bit. I wait to turn in until after the road has kind of widened a bit. You can even kind of inch over and use that extra space to open up turn 4, which can definitely be helpful, although you don't really want a whole lot of weight transfer back and forth. So if you do that, do it gradually to keep the car balanced as you get into your corner entry here. So you can see I'm kind of using a bit of that road there, and then there's going to be about a 50% brake or so carried up to the turn-in point. So starting at about 80, coming down to about 50 to turn in. There's a downshift in a second. And as you turn in, again, you want to use maybe some of the curbing, but don't get too much. Don't get up too high, because like I say, the little taller curbing can definitely unsettle the car a bit too much and maybe even send you to a slide. As you come off the corner, maybe even more important not to run off into the green surface here past the curbing, which is actually very slippery. So if you put a tire up over into that section, even though you can maybe get away with it without an off track in some portions here, it's actually pretty risky as far as resulting in a slide, because you should be full throttle by this point. There's actually the full throttle point right there, just as the car reaches that curbing, and you want to maintain full throttle all the way off this corner. And as you're kind of turning away from it, just dropping a tire off into this surface across the curbing can really send it into a spin in a hurry. So let's play this through its speed. All full throttle around turn 5 and up into turn 6. So into turn 6, important that you're using all of the road here. You'll see cars right up next to the grass at turn in. This is going to be a downshift into third. As far as braking, it's pretty light, maybe a 20 to 30% brake. And that's going to happen just prior to turn in, maybe just as you reach the structure here to your left. 30% brake, downshift into third. I actually don't like using the curbing here in this corner. I'd rather just try to make sure I keep the speed up, get pretty close to it, clipping it just a bit. And again, on the turn 7 portion of the corner, the most important thing for me is to get as close to this curbing as I can. I think it's more important to get close to this curbing than it is the first. So your focus here should be just to make sure you're carrying a lot of speed through the corner. And so you'll actually see that I actually just carry a lot of throttle as late as I can, very light brake, and then just some trail braking, maybe just dragging the brake to just kind of help with a little bit with preventing the car from running too wide. Help a little bit with rotation as well, just to kind of make sure that I'm getting over to the curbing here to the right. And by the time I reach that, I'm actually back to throttle again. So there's the throttle point. And kind of modulating the throttle. I want to carry speed off this corner and let the car track out all the way out wide here. You can even go maybe a little wider than this without too much trouble. It can be a little rough or bumpy at times, but you want a wide entry coming into turn 8. So it's good to let the car run out wide here. Turn 8's pretty tight. We'll look at that here in just a second, but let's play this at speed first. All right, so coming into turn 8, this is going to be a downshift into first gear. I think I'll downshift into second and then first. Good to do for safety, just if you want to ensure you're not downshifting into first too early and risk blowing the engine there. So you'll see me downshift into second and then down into first. As far as braking goes, that actually starts probably about the point that I reach the curbing here to the left. So you'll see about a 50% brake right about that point. So if you look at it as maybe being kind of in between the this curbing and the next curbing, right about the midpoint there is where I start to brake, I would say. 50%, letting the car kind of turn in. And now I actually use a fair bit of curbing here. You can even use more than this pretty safely, although I find that if you cut into this too much, then what happens is I was maybe carrying too much speed into the corner and cutting across it too aggressively. And then as I came off the curbing, I was running too wide to the left. And you really want to sacrifice this exit a little bit. You'll notice I never really quite get to the midway point of the road because I'm already setting up for turn 9. So it's real important to make sure that you're setting up to, again, get a wide entry into turn 9. Because if you find yourself coming out closer to this curb here, turn 9 is going to be a sharper corner for you, and you're going to have to slow the car a little more than necessary around turn 9. You actually give up quite a bit of speed here if you do that. Again, the focus here should be just getting into turn 9 as close to the curb as you can. You can even get up onto this curbing a little bit, but not take too much. And then getting on throttle right there at the just past the mid corner point. And then kind of easing into throttle. You're in first gear, so on a first gear corner, you want to keep the throttle around 50% or so as you get ready to unwind your steering, and then of course you can ease on past that. And I actually short shifted up into second here. Turbo's starting to kind of spool up and kick in right here, and so there's my upshift from first into second. While I'm actually still at about mid throttle, so as the speed kind of starts to come up, I'll actually short shift it right there. And you could probably be more aggressive with that if the weather's a little cooler. All right, so let's play this at speed. One thing to maybe keep in mind through turns 8 and 9, these last two turns here, is to just kind of keep a nice steady speed. You don't want to overslow the car, but you also don't want to get too heavy on throttle. So at no point off of turn 8 and around turn 9 do I think reach full throttle. So you can see that I'm just kind of modulating throttle and never quite reaching full throttle, just trying to keep the speed steady. And I really don't get back to full throttle until I'm back up into second gear. And once I'm in second gear and I've got the car straightened up, I can finally get back to full throttle at this point, finally. All right, so coming into turn 10. Into turn 10, I kind of aim down the middle of the road here. There really isn't enough time to get a much wider entry, at least in this weather where the grip levels are just not high enough to carry a lot of speed and swing it out wide without resulting in a little bit of traction loss if you turn in real sharply on a wider entry. So in this weather, for me, what I found was quicker and maybe more consistent was just to kind of come out, aim down the middle of the road here, braking right at about where the tree is maybe. So there's, or just before, there's about a 40% or so brake right at that point. And there's going to be another downshift into first here. And again, you don't want to take too much curbing. You really just kind of want to follow it, get pretty close to it. You'll see I'll get up on it a bit there, just trying to stay off the steeper portion of the curbing. Again, this is a place where it can unsettle the car, maybe even send you into a spin if you come across that curbing too quickly, too aggressively. As you come off this corner, once again, you're now already getting prepared to set up for turn 11. So try not to run too far to the left here because you really want to start to move over and open up your entry into turn 11 right away. So let's play this one through. Another kind of a short shift I think there as well up into second gear. And let's see, there's the, yeah, I don't reach full throttle in first gear. I'm already short shifting into second there coming off of that corner. And again, just for safety, it's you're less likely to lose rear grip by going full throttle right away there in first gear. So coming through turn 11, again, you're just kind of wanting to stay pretty close. You can take more curbing than this without too much trouble, but just to keep it smooth, again, I don't like to go up onto the steeper part of the curbing too much. It's just too many things can happen that can cause you to have to lift or have to adjust your line as it kind of interrupts the balance of the car coming off the corner. So there I am using just kind of the flatter portion of that curbing and just keeping it snug there. Back to full throttle just as the car leaves the curbing. So just as I kind of come off, there's full throttle in third gear. There is an off track if you come off over the curbing here too early. So I think that if you kind of touch over into the green surface, that's probably where the off track occurs. So although I like to come down into this kind of crosshatch concrete surface a little bit, I like to keep the left side tires here closer to the white line, and that seems to give me kind of a nice angle off into turn 12 here, where I can get a good entry and a good exit off of the corner there. So let's go ahead and play through turn 11 first. All right, so now while you can actually come all the way down here, down below the asphalt without an off track, I think that your braking capability is going to be limited a bit. I think that it felt a little more slippery if you come all the way down there. And I couldn't necessarily get a quicker line by doing that, and so I kind of went back to the line that I'm showing here, where the left side of the car is really kind of closer or just slightly over the white line. The braking point, 50 to 60% braking, maybe at about the midpoint of the this crosshatch concrete surface here. So right at about there is about where I'm starting to brake. So 50 to 60% down from fourth into second gear, and then turning in just as the car is kind of left or reached the end of this crosshatch surface here. And now aiming to use a little bit of the curbing here, but again, not too much, because you want to start to get to throttle just as you leave this curbing to the left. So just coming off of that, easing on throttle now, and you want to let the car track all the way out. And you can use the curbing here on the exit without too much trouble. I come all the way up onto that, and I'm full throttle. By the time I reach the curbing there, there's the full throttle point there, and then this is going to be full throttle all the way to the end of the lap. So let's play that through at speed. So around turn 13 and 14, the only thing I guess you want to keep in mind, especially in a race, is that don't get lazy with this corner. As you come across this, just keep it close to the curbing here, and maybe kind of a later apex into the latter part of that curbing. If you get lazy with this and you're not paying a lot of attention, you can actually find yourself into the grass pretty quickly. And so if you're trying to go too wide through there, trying to complete a pass, just remember that you run out of road here in a hurry if you kind of take a lazy line through here and you're not really paying close attention. So that grass does come up in a hurry there. So there's a lap of Interlagos. Hope you found it helpful, and I'll talk to you later.